Welcome to the First Waves podcast, which is for all of you who would like to further boost your career development and continuously improve day after day. If you want to bring even more value for your company, bet on yourself, and have a great career in the corporate world, this podcast is for you. This episode is sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, an environmentally friendly online training company that cares about your personal development. You can find the courses for employees and managers under www.wave-bef.com. In today's episode, we're going to focus on what you do most of the day, which is work, and how to always have the energy and the motivation to do great work. We will also speak about how to identify if you are stuck in the hamster wheel and what are the things that are holding you back from your career development. I'm thrilled to introduce you to my amazing guest, Mustafa Ammar, who is from Egypt and lived on 5 continents and speaks 7 languages. His passions have led him around the world, and he sees himself, just like me, as a global citizen. He helps you make your next career step the perfect fit for you. In other words, Mustafa is specialized in making your work not seem like work anymore. If your everyday work drains your energy and makes you unhappy, it will have a direct correlation to your health. Mustafa has also gone through several career transformations, and he can give you the tools to go through a career transition while keeping stress levels low. He enjoyed success in several fields, including pharmacy and also in global diplomacy, where he was 10 years as a diplomat in China, in Malawi, at the United Nations. Further, he worked in a multinational bank developing their business as an operations investment specialist. Through it all, he stayed focused on living the life of his dreams and not the life others expected from him. He is motivated to show you how to make those transition steps so you can follow your passions with clarity and confidence. In his company named The Passion MBA, they created a step-by-step blueprint for those of you who aspire a career change, and they guide you in a way so that you can avoid taking high risks in your career transformation, maintain your compensation, and create your next big career opportunity. Mustafa and I are convinced that when you work in your dream job, then you will thrive, find your life purpose, and live life full of energy. In this podcast episode, he will share with you some of the secrets to empower you to be the hero of your own story. I'm thrilled to introduce you to this amazing guest, Mustafa. Hello, Mustafa, and welcome to the First Waves podcast. So great to have you here.
Hello, Juan. It's always a pleasure coming back and talking to you and your audience. Thank you.
So you're the first guest that I have that was on all of my 3 podcasts. So that's really amazing.
It's really my pleasure. Connecting, through different podcasts, I really also personally connected a lot to you. We have a lot of synchronity in different things. I really enjoy talking with you. Thank you so much.
Same here. And I hope we will be able to transfer that joy also to the listeners. Our listeners are employees who are working in a corporation. And my first question to you is, what is your definition of being successful at work?
Well, the definition of success, of course, is different, but my own is you keep learning every day. Across my different career experiences, people getting promoted along the way, getting closer to your boss, getting the ladder very quickly up, is the main way to succeed. But my own definition is to keep investing in yourself every single day, keep learning every single day. If you stay for a week or 2 without learning something new, then you better find a way to learn something new. And the more you're learning in yourself, the more options you have in your career and your life, and the more control you have, the more honest to yourself, because some people get lost focusing on the wrong criteria to be successful. But if you're true to yourself, if you know that you're learning every single day and you're growing every single day, you have more options, then you are successful. For me, that's the right definition of success.
So true. I've seen so many employees who at the beginning maybe are motivated by, let's say, the shiny objects, like thinking, well, maybe I would like to get a higher compensation, I would like to
Yes.
have more salary, but for that they had to change maybe the manager. They're in a different area that they're not so motivated about, and then a couple of years later they realize that they're getting more money, but they are totally unhappy with the manager, they're totally unhappy with the job itself, they do not enjoy the processes. So that's again where you need to be truthful to yourself, to identify first of all what is it that you like, what you don't like, and to put the right priorities.
I agree. And to this point, you get to meet toxic people around. Toxic people are not true to themselves and their values. So they think they are smart enough that they can trick you, stab you in the back in many different ways. And for them, they focus on the wrong criteria, right? They want to get higher in the hierarchy of the organization. While if you are true to yourself, that's not a sign of weakness. You know that you shouldn't go down to that level of toxicity. You should be true to yourself, your values. You should stick to your goals. What I'm really doing here and what I'm doing here, if I'm just learning, if I'm exploring, if I'm exponentially growing in different directions, that should be your focus. So having that kind of people around you shouldn't really drag you from your main focus of success.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thanks for putting it that way. It really makes sense. And I would say my next question is a very easy one, but I like to ask that question because it's to put again this message out there for everybody. So who is in charge of the employees' development?
It's a good question. I also took some time to realize that I supposed to be the one in charge as an employee in the past, in charge of my development. No one will care as much as you to take care of you, to take care of your development, to grow. No boss should be in charge of you, creating a plan for you to grow in your career. It's a big mistake to expect that your boss will be the one who take care of you when you need a promotion. He will give you when you need a course or upskilling program. He will design that for you. You should really take lead of your career, take lead of your career planning, upskilling, reskilling, take initiative, put a plan, go out there and ask for support if needed from any person. Learning this the hard way made me realize that I'm the one in charge of my life and my career, and everybody should do the same.
Excellent. Fantastic. I was so many years in the corporate world, and I've heard so many employees complain about my manager did not register me to some training, my manager this, my manager that. But at the end of the day, they're the ones who need to be responsible and putting it in their hands, putting it on the agenda the next time when they speak with their manager, and just mention it. Yeah, if the manager doesn't know themselves that employees are motivated to do something, to do a training, then managers do not have like that crystal ball to be the ones who can instinctively know exactly the desires of every single employee. So therefore, employees need to really expose themselves and say, dear manager, I would like to develop myself in this direction or the other direction.
100%.
If an employee is working in one area of the company and after a couple of years, they feel curious about moving to another area in the company. So for example, if they are in marketing and they would like to go to accounting, or maybe they want to go to IT area or anywhere else, what would you recommend them to do? How would be their next steps? How would be their transition to move on to a different area?
This is actually a great question, because one of the big mistakes professionals do when they explore, a career transition is not looking inside their organization or their corporations, because that's still a safe space. If you still like the place, if you still like the culture of that place, why not you explore yourself somewhere there? And it's safe compared to just going to a whole new organization or a whole new industry somewhere else, right? I'm doing a lot of work on supporting departmental rotation for a medium term, for a longer term, because also as a leader, if you want to support yourself to get and assume a leadership role, you should be knowing more about your organization by going in different departments and seeing the view and the angle of that new department or that new team. So I would argue that the first step would be go and have a conversation with that team that you feel that you would work with. Learn more about their responsibilities, learn more about their teams, learn more about their culture, because also different teams, different departments have different cultures. Assess things as if you are there already working there. Know your boss, new boss more. This way you are taking initiative, you are taking control. So you are the one who almost decide everything, not the new boss, not, the other boss. And see whether that's an environment you want to see yourself there. If everything is all right, then build the, more network, more connection with your new boss, and try to handle both bosses to have an easy transition. I have seen successful people who were able to do that in a very smart way. I've seen also other people who were just jumping, going to the new department, and then also there are a lot of politics between different departments, and both bosses have to agree, right? So building a plan is essential to have a transitional period.
Yeah, that's really good, especially that a lot of employees, they have the feeling that management already have a set or a very defined destiny for them in a company, and the employees feel that they do not have really much to say if they want to go more one direction or the other. But in reality, you do have something to say, because you need to express yourself to your managers and to let them know where you would like to really develop yourself towards.
I agree. Even if it looks like you don't have control over your destiny and somebody else is deciding that, you have to have control over your destiny. You have to decide, you have to plan. Don't leave others planning for you every single step of your career. Otherwise, you will get left. I've seen a lot of people who just leave themselves to the flow, not taking initiatives, not planning long enough for their careers. And at some point, they get left,
Yeah. And then they see themselves as the victim scenario. No, they say, "Oh, I was the victim of this and that." Yeah, but in reality, if you do not become proactive, then at the end of the day, you become victims of whatever has been happening in the department, any decisions that have been taken by management, because you as an employee did not take the first step to advise them of what are your desires and wishes and goals.
I speak a lot about having 100% responsibility of your career. Learning from Jack Canfield, the success principles, and I'm also a licensed coach teaching the success principles. We say E plus R equals O. O is outcome. So event plus reaction to that event equals outcome. So always the outcome depends on your reaction to something happen to you. And taking 100% responsibility is a key. So if you assume that everybody else should take responsibility of your career or your destiny, that's not true. You should be proactive. You should plan. You should always, stick to your principles. If anything happened to you, you have to take responsibility. How can I react to that? What I can do to get control over my career? How I can be proactive? What kind of initiative I should take? What kind of skills I need to learn? You should be in charge of all of this.
Yeah. And are there any red flags that you can say this is something that the employee needs to be aware of, where they can start finding out, okay, I think it's now time for me to think about moving on, to think about making the next step or doing my next development plan? What are the red flags that they usually could see?
Your performance is also a reflection of your feeling and your productivity. So if the levels of performance are not at its peak, there's something wrong. So you need to question that, why that is happening. It definitely can have different reasons based on the fact, for example, it could be related to a family thing or you're burnt out just because you're working hard for a long time without a vacation. But also it can relate to you don't have passion enough for what you're doing anymore. And you might need to change. That's one thing. Also, a career plateau can happen because of different things. And it happens all the time. Maybe it can happen because you are in the wrong team. You're not in the right team anymore. Maybe it can happen also because you lack passion for what you're doing. Maybe because you need to change. Maybe because you need to grow more. So going out of that comfort zone, you start growing more because you start learning more. Like if you stay for 6 months somewhere around all of this, this is a big, big red flag. You really have to change. I would argue 1 month is enough to figure out the reasons why this is happening and find a solution for that.
Yeah, perfect. From your experience, what is the average duration that an employee should stay in one position? Is it something like 2 to 3 years or 2 to 4 years? What is your experience?
I think spending 3 years in the same place, same position, the same desk is more than enough to learn all the ups and downs, everything around what you're doing. 5 years is too much. So definitely less than 5 years. There are a lot of studies also is happening around that. The 10 hours rule, that a lot of people argue that you need to spend 10,000 hours, and some people reflect that on, I think, 10 years. But then a lot of other people, a lot of other researchers found that 3 to 5 years is a sweet spot where almost everything around it, you don't need to repeat much, and then you're ready to move to a new experience to learn more.
Yeah, perfect. So I think that would probably be one more red flag if an employee at this moment thinking, oh, I'm already 8 years doing the same thing. Maybe I should start looking around to see how I can further develop. Yeah.
Exactly. And 8 years, I think, is too long. If that specific person look at him or herself, would see that they're not learning enough every single day. Almost. They're not learning anything new every single day. While I think until 3 to 5 years, you reach the super saturated level of learning in that space, and you need to go out.
From your experience of what you have seen in different businesses, do you think that there are two types of employees? Some who are happy at doing the same thing every single day for the rest of their life, compared to other employees who are unhappy if they do the same thing every day and they do need to see that progress every few years. Do you think that it's different for one person to the other?
Well, in general, we are different in many things, right? In our attitude, in our traits and our skills, all of that. But I don't believe anybody is motivated enough, would like to do the same thing all her life. The challenge is that we just get accustomed to what's happening. If you work in a government entity doing the same work for 30 years, I would say you turn to be that new creature that sometimes is a really ugly creature that doesn't like to work enough. Your performance, your working hours or rate is like 30 minutes a month or 30 minutes every couple of months. So it's the environment around you that is changing you. If you are put in the right environment, put the right criteria to perform, the right criteria to measure that performance, then you keep learning. And the more you learn, the more you're able to trust yourself, have self-confidence that you can do more and more, and explore more about yourself, by the way, because the more you learn, the more you explore more about yourself, and the more you get to know a lot of things about yourself. Many things I explored about myself along the way, I never thought I would be able to do. But just by going out of the comfort zone, you give yourself a chance to know more about yourself. Unfortunately, for those people who spend long time in one place, they didn't learn this, and they just get accustomed to one thing and they don't want to do anymore. They think they are happy this way, but they're not. They're not.
I think if I reflect to what you are saying right now, it definitely matches, because I think those employees who have been many, many years working in the same position, in the same role, they're usually the ones who are complaining the most about everything in the company.
Exactly. And it's not helpful to you, to everybody around you. It's just you keep complaining without changing. If you keep complaining about the status quo and not even trying 1% of changing, that's a sign of weakness. If I started complaining, I have to take responsibility, as we talked earlier. Take 5% more responsibility about your life, your career, and start changing a bit by bit. And then you can see the change happening, and then you can see that you are more in control.
And that's when you start noticing that this hunger starts to arrive, because when you know that I can now achieve this, I've learned something new. With this new knowledge, I was able to achieve something else. I was able to take over more responsibility in the company. And then somehow you get into this cycle of development, and you somehow get more hungry for further development. And then you start enjoying life to the fullest, because you are having a great time in job. And most of the hours during the day is doing the job. Yeah. So therefore, you better do something that you're really going to be enjoying and happy doing.
Exactly. And that takes us back to the environment around you. No matter what, you do the job or you don't do the job, you will get your salary at the end of the month. It doesn't matter. So it's not also supportive to somebody who's high achiever, who does the work and then look around and see people around him or her are not working enough like him. And then it doesn't matter. You do the work or you don't do the work, it's the same, right? So also back to that environment, if you work in an organization that is not really supporting you as a high achiever or high performing employee, then there is something wrong. So it starts from there.
So true. When you mentioned the word environment, it gave me the image of planting a seed in a flower pot. And if you're going to grow, for example, a tree, if you have a small flower pot, it's a small environment, the tree cannot grow that much. Yeah, but if you give it a nice, big, large flower pot, that tree is going to be able to expand its powers and become greater and more beautiful.
Exactly. And I'll just give an example. One of the places I work, like I was working so hard, 12 hours every day, while there's somebody else coming as a guest, just coming every day just to drink coffee. At the end of the year, our performance, our rating was the same. It's very tough. If you learn that, it doesn't matter whether, you work hard or not, you will get the same performance rating. It's very harmful. So either I don't care, which is very harmful for the organization, or I quit. Like I have to find a way, because continuing like this is very harmful to me, my morals and my emotions, right?
Correct. And that's where management really needs to watch out how they treat their employees. And if they're going to do the same type of treatment for everybody, because you say fair treatment for everybody, but then it cannot be applied in that way, because you're going to then demoralize all of those high performers that you have. And then the high performers will say, okay, then I'd rather either move to another company or I stay here and I become just as a low performer as everybody else, because at the end of the day, I'm just going to get the same type of treatment.
Exactly.
So you wrote a very interesting book, which is called Time to Move On. Could you tell us a little bit more about your book and how can it help employees?
Sure, yeah. My book is Time to Move On. I speak about the 7 common yet hidden career myths that people believe in. And in order to change, they need to start busting one by one before, finding their dream career. So for every employee who has a bit of experience in one industry, one domain, and explore a bit of change, want to explore a new domain, a new industry, I believe the first true step, the right step, is to learn how to bust some of those myths. I'll just give an example. If somebody say like, oh, I spend all my life, my career in this industry, how would I change? It's very risky to change. So I'm proving to him or her that change is not risky. So if he or she say change is risky, I'm proving through research, data, stories that actually staying there and keeping the status quo is super risky. And while walking around that comfort zone, going out a bit, once you go out of that comfort zone, there's a bit of risky zone. But when you start operating there and go out a bit, then there is the growth zone. When you get to that growth zone, you know that you shouldn't go back anymore, because you can see that impact on yourself and on your life, on your career. So in many different ways, I'm proving to them that there are a lot of this myth that we all believed in, whether through school, education, or university, our industries. And we just need to bust one by one before finding our dream career.
So good. And from your experience, what are some of the things that hold a person back from advancing in their career?
I would argue again that doing the same thing every single day for more than 2 years is risky. Like if you do the same in the beginning of your job, I think after a year you start mastering how to do things. Once you see the learning curve is going to the plateau, you really have to be concerned. And you have to ask yourself, okay, what else I can do to learn? Whether I need to learn more skills, or I assume more responsibilities, or I add more roles to my job description, or whatever. So you need to ask that question.
So good, especially that now that we were speaking about the comfort zone, I think as soon as it starts getting too comfortable, then we really know, that's time now to to do something.
Yeah, people think that's the best feeling ever, but actually that's the worst. Like if you stay for a year, never learn one new thing in a year, that's a disaster. Because it's a red alert that you are somewhere that you didn't learn for a year. One new skill or one new tiny thing that you need to do. And once you have that feeling, you really have to change. You really have to start, okay, what else I can do to go out of that comfort zone? And always remember that beyond the comfort zone, there is a growth zone. So it's not risky. Going out of that comfort zone, you will grow.
So true. It reminds me a little bit of the analogy of exercise. And usually if I speak with movement experts, they say that it's really dangerous to have a comfortable sofa at home, because if you have a comfortable sofa, you're going to sit there and you're going to say, oh, this is so comfortable. I'm going to watch Netflix now for 4 hours. Yeah. And you're just there immobilized in this comfort sofa. And
I agree.
they say if you take away all the chairs and you sit on the floor and watch Netflix, then you will be always moving. You'll be moving different
Exactly.
positions and different directions. And then at the end of the day, it's much, much better for your health to be moving than being constantly in that comfort, in that comfort zone that's going to make you sick.
I like this analogy. Thanks for sharing this. I totally agree. It's exactly the same. Yeah.
Mustafa, we're almost to the end of this episode. Could you explain to the listeners, what are your services?
Sure. So also, being an author, I'm still a coach. So I'm still coaching, clients how to find their dream career. So I help them through my methodology, the Passion Blueprint, to decide their next dream career in 4 to 6 weeks. And then within the coming month, I help them to transform themselves, learn the new skills, build the right network, get to wherever they want to get. I still do that until now. Hopefully in the future that's scaled because I'm building my tech startup, hopefully to help as many people as we could, because there are a lot of people out there, they are not able to change, and you need that support and that network of people who can help them to do so.
Thank you so much for that. And
Thank you.
where can the listeners find you in case they're interested to get those services?
My current company website is thepassionmba.com. We also can find a very interesting ebook, is the 10 top mistakes to avoid when planning your career transition. It's downloadable for free. Also mustafaammar.com. Mustafa, M-U-S-T-A-F-A, Ammar, A-M-M-A-R.com. And they can find a lot about my book, my coaching services. Also, I do retreats for performing teams. I do retreats for individuals who want to change their careers in 5 days. So we can minimize the process from 4 to 6 weeks to 5 days. We do it in Italy. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Sounds really good, and a nice location as well in Italy.
It's a bit of balance between enjoying also environment around you and getting some inspiration, and then also finding a good network of people who can help you to do so. And having that big change, big leap in 4 or 5 days, I think is super powerful.
Yeah. And it's sometimes better to do that intense work in a short time period. It's like taking off a Band-Aid. Yeah, if you take off the Band-Aid really quick, then maybe it doesn't hurt that much. Then if you're going to do it slowly and be pulling all the hairs out little by little, and then it could be a very long and painful process. So in this case, you really make it very short and intense, and therefore more effective.
I agree with you. And to this point, I heard a lot of people saying life is a marathon, is not a race. It makes sense. But for me, it's not a race and it's not a marathon. Is a bunch of marathonic races. You really have to be, long term, but at the same time, you have to go fast for a couple of days, for a week, for 2 weeks. You achieve a lot. And then relax a bit. I explored this in my banking career. I was doing my MBA at the same time. I had many hats at that time. I was doing a bit of consultancy work. So there is a week that I really have to focus on this. And I have to go full. I'm racing,
It's like a sprint. Yeah.
Sprint. I'm sprinting. I'm flying from one country to the other. I'm doing a project here. Blah, blah. And then I have an assignment for my MBA. And then I'm flying for a presentation somewhere. And I found how efficient and productive I am when I just do this deep focus on this work. So I would argue it's not a race, it's not a marathon, it's a mix of both.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Mustafa, for your time, for First Waves. It's again such a pleasure to have you, and hope to see you soon again.
Thank you so much, Juan. It's always a pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation as the last ones as well. And I'm looking forward for more in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mustafa.
Thank you.
What a wonderful conversation. I hope this episode with Mustafa has triggered a few ideas on how to plan your next development step. Before doing anything else right now, I encourage you to reflect on what was discussed today and think about how you feel about your current job. It is not always black or white, good or bad. You could look at it, for example, on a scale from 1 to 10. In this episode, Mustafa explains some signs that you will notice once it is time to move on with your career before it starts affecting your well-being. Therefore, my question to you is, where are you now with your satisfaction level with your work in a scale from 1 to 10? In the show notes, you will find all the links on where to find Mustafa and how to contact him. On his website, you will also find an interesting quiz you can take and see what comes out. Think about how many years of your life you will be working. You deserve to do something that is fulfilling and fun, as this will be one of the many factors that will make you a happier, more radiant and energized person. This podcast was sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, a digital training company that cares about your career development, your personal development, and the well-being of this planet we call home. On our website, www.wave-bef.com, you will find a total of 22 courses. 7 of them are designed for managers and 15 courses are designed for employees who strive to become leaders of tomorrow. I value your feedback and I would love to hear from you. Please rate, subscribe, and share this episode with those whom you think will profit from this information. Your support means the world to me and it motivates me to keep producing content that adds value to your life. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Big hugs, everyone.